Hello and welcome to Access Asia. Coming up, violent protests and strikes spread in the world's second biggest garment sector in Bangladesh. Despite $55 billion in annual exports, millions of workers live below the poverty line. Afghanistan bowled out against South Africa, but not before it bowled over the world. We'll take a closer look at their surprising run at the Cricket World Cup. And over 1 billion people celebrate Diwali. It's a major festival celebrating the triumph of light over darkness and the start of new beginnings. We'll find out more in a moment. Bangladesh is the world's second biggest garment manufacturing hub after China. And amid soaring inflation, conditions are so dire for workers there that even after a 56% pay raise, they still remain well under the poverty line. Protests and strikes have been violent, even deadly. The unrest has forced many factories in the country to close. Take a look.
They make clothes for some of the fashion industry's most well-known brands, from Zara to Gap, Levi's and H&M. But many garment workers in Bangladesh are struggling to put food on the table, with one of the world's lowest minimum wages. On Tuesday, Bangladesh authorities announced a new structure that would see the minimum wage rise 56.25% from $75 to $113. But for workers' groups, it was a definitive no, as the proposed amount would still not be enough to live on.
How can people live with such prices? In the Mirpur area, a typical family, unless they live in a slum, has to spend $80 in rent. If 1 litre of oil is $160 to $170, how can people afford it? Doesn't the government understand?
For weeks, workers have demonstrated in the streets. In some cases, factories were ransacked, vandalised and set alight after the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association initially offered a 25% increase to $90. But workers wanted $208, nearly treble the current salary. Bangladesh's garment industry has 4 million workers, mostly women, working across nearly 3,500 factories that account for around 85% of its annual exports. Factory owners argue that the costs have increased and global brands in Western countries are offering less than before. The new pay structure would be the first increase to the minimum wage since 2018, but further protests are expected in the coming weeks before the wage is confirmed.
November 11th is known as Double 11 Day in China. It's the world's biggest online and offline sales event. When it comes to retail, big brands and local stores alike are turning to live streaming to reach out to customers. The trend has boomed since the pandemic. Yana Lee went to find out more.
With 44,000 followers, Xiaofeng is one of the biggest food influencers in Tianjin, China's 7th biggest city. A simple studio is enough for sellers to interact with potential buyers.
For example, they ask me, is this enough for one person or two? What do I say at the store? Can I order other items? What's included in this deal? You're basically a real-time customer service and shopping guide.
To keep up with his growing business, Xiaofeng has hired a new streamer. They take it in turns to keep the live video going for up to 12 hours a day.
Hello friends, welcome to the live stream.
Last year, some 450 billion euros worth of goods were sold on live platforms in China, 8 times more than in 2019, the year before the pandemic. And the boom is attracting new entrepreneurs. Taozi quit her job at a major internet company last year to sell vintage jewelry on social media.
I spend a lot of time putting these products up for sale. And when I go live, they go from my shelves to sales in just a few minutes. Which means I have more time to select products, expand my channel, and bring items to everyone.
This summer, one Chinese poll found that 2/3 of surveyed youth were interested in becoming online hosts or influencers.
Afghanistan may not have won the Cricket World Cup, but their inspiring run brought them on the cusp of the semi-finals, a victory in itself. Each win gave people back home rare opportunities for public celebration in the war-torn Taliban-controlled country. The team has an uneasy relationship with the government. It still plays under the green, black, and red national flag banned by the Taliban and it is based abroad. For more, let's speak to journalist Sidharth Monga, joining us from Goa. Hello, Sidharth. Thank you for speaking to France 24. They beat former champions England, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. How improbable is that?
It's highly improbable, and not just the fact that they beat them, but the way that the assured way that they beat them in. It was just an assured, smooth chase of runs against Pakistan. Pakistan is a very important team for them to beat because of their rivalry with them. And to beat England and Sri Lanka, England, who are the defending champions, and Sri Lanka, this is a huge achievement for a team. I'll just give you a brief lowdown on three formats of cricket. One is over 20 overs, which finishes in 3 hours. The other one, the World Cup that we're playing, is 50 overs, that takes 8 hours. And then there's Test cricket. So the longer it gets, the more difficult it is for a lesser fancy team to come and beat a higher ranked team. And this 50 over format is quite long, and it's very, very rare for these kind of upsets to happen. So they improved a lot in the last 4 years, especially their batting, while their bowling used to be their strength earlier.
Why do you think they made these improvements?
So cricket in Afghanistan has all the ingredients that you need for cricket or any sport to flourish. It has got young population, passionate about the sport. There are careers to be made from the sport, which means that it's not just a pastime that you can passionately pursue it. The fourth is it has got institutional backing, which we can come later to it, how uneasy that relationship is, but it does have institutional backing. So there's everything you need for the sport to flourish. And all the best population of Afghanistan, the youngsters, the most athletic, strongest youngsters, they are getting attracted to it. And the institutions have, for whatever reasons, they have provided them the best facilities that they can.
Sidharth, I know it's not your domain, but I'm just wondering if on the back of the success of this Afghan team, if you think the Taliban might revisit its ban on women's sports.
I don't know if they will, because as you know, how entrenched Taliban are in their beliefs. But I do feel that it brings a cloud of uncertainty on the Afghan cricket team, because already last year they were supposed to play Australia in Australia, but Australia cancelled that tour because there's no women's team. And if I'm not wrong, Paris 24, the Olympics, I don't think they have yet been cleared to participate in those Olympics. The participation in 2028 Olympics is up in air. And even the crickets, the other teams just agreed to play them right now because it's a World Cup, and if they don't, it's a forfeit. Otherwise, there are 3 or 4 teams that I can think of who might not want to play them because they do not encourage female sport.
All right, Sidharth, thank you very much for speaking to us. Sidharth Monga joining us from Goa.
Thanks a lot.
Well, Indians are marking Diwali this week. The festival is one of the most important in the country, and it's celebrated across faiths. To talk more about this, we can bring in Delano D'Souza. Hello to you, Delano. First of all, let's begin with the obvious question, I suppose. What exactly is Diwali?
Well, Diwali is a festival that celebrates good over evil, light over darkness, knowledge over ignorance. While it's extremely popular amongst Hindus in India, it is celebrated by virtually everyone, from Buddhists to Jains. Muslims also celebrate Diwali, with some mosques even lighting up for the occasion. Diwali is celebrated differently depending on where you are in India, whether you're in the north or in the south. One thing that is common is there's a lot of diyas, which are basically lanterns that are lit. There's firecrackers, which unfortunately adds to the noise pollution and the pollution in general in various cities. And you also have these patterns on the floor with colored powders called rangoli. So that is what we tend to see with Diwali in India. And there's also this belief that whoever gambles on Diwali will be prosperous for the year ahead. Now, while Diwali is a public holiday in India, it is slowly going to start getting an international dimension, because next year, the New York public school system is going to have the 12th of November as a public holiday. So that's a first for Diwali outside of India and parts of Asia. Plus, there's legislation, I believe, in the United States to mark the 12th of November federally. So we'll see if that actually does pass.
No, that's an interesting angle, Delano. Talk to us about the sort of celebrations we see for Diwali outside of India.
Well, in recent years, we've seen Diwali celebrations really mushroom globally, and this has nothing to do with Indian missions overseas, but everything to do with India's diaspora, which is stationed in many parts of the world, whether it's in New York or in London. We are seeing these annual events taking place which have become a thing. For instance, for 2 years in a row, we've seen Condé Nast Traveler co-host events in London. And I was curious to know why a publishing house would host a Diwali event. So I reached out to the global editorial director, Divya Tani, and asked her about it. And what she told me was really interesting. She said that when she arrived in London from India to take up this new role, she found that the Diwali celebrations which existed didn't match the power and influence of the Indian community in the United Kingdom. So she decided to create one of her own. She went to Anna Wintour and spoke to her, and Anna Wintour encouraged her and said, go for it. And then she decided to partner with brands that have a long history with India. Last year, she partnered with Johnnie Walker Blue Label because it's very successful in India. Whiskey is consumed in India a lot, and the brand has a long history there. This year, they partnered up with Cartier because the French luxury brand also has a long history with India. And she told me something very interesting. She said a lot of luxury brands are looking at India in a positive way. The smart ones recognize the power of the diaspora and that the diaspora looks to what's going on back home in the motherland. Plus, we also see a lot of Diwali celebrations in countries around the world. For instance, in Canada, because of its sizable Indian community there, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had a Diwali celebration. Plus, there are global leaders of Indian origin. In the United Kingdom, we have British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. When he was Chancellor, he would light diyas outside his residence. This year, he celebrated Diwali as Prime Minister. The same thing for the US Vice President Kamala Harris. Last year, the White House hosted a Diwali party, which a lot of people attended. This year, Kamala Harris is also hosting a Diwali event, but unfortunately, some high-profile names are boycotting the event in protest of the administration's Middle East policy right now.
All right, thank you, Delano D'Souza, taking us through the Diwali celebrations. That brings us to the end of this edition of Access Asia. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned to France 24.